I
That's
think the
perfectly
era,
said.
the bandage era, I think it has to end. I mean, how many more band-aids can is Band-Aid sponsoring you guys? Like, I don't understand. Like, it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? So, I think for that, it has to be over for you guys. But will it? Will it not? I mean, I really don't know. It's really hard to tell. I mean, I think there are pieces, those young pieces, those pillars that I think that the team has to, go forward with. But, Di Maria, great player, absolute, legend of the game for sure. But unfortunately, a bit of a band-aid. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but that's kind of what it is. We don't know if he's coming or going next year. We don't know if he's going to renew. We don't know what's going to happen. I don't know his contract situation, so you guys can quote me on that. You can't quote me on that, but Pogba, another one. I mean, just the constant things, and Nick has said it on our show many times as well. So,
I mean, in their defense, though, on the Pogba situation, if you can get Pogba back for a free, why wouldn't you? That's what they did. But
he's been on the pitch for 7 minutes.
But he hasn't played much.
Like, what do you know what I mean? Like,
but
at the time, you couldn't have predicted that. It's their defense at the time.
Sure.
They took a big swing with it, knowing that they couldn't afford to replace.
But wasn't he injured? Wasn't he injured before he came?
See, no. Yeah, he had some injury problems with United, and then he started off training well, and it was right in the middle of it, training, he got hurt again, and then he had some off the field issues. He did talk recently in L'Equipe, the French newspaper. Sorry, I butchered that. But, I'm Italian, not French. But thank you. So he talked about some of the off the field issues kind of put him back mentally this year, where maybe he wasn't thinking straight and he was kind of all over the place. I don't know if that's true or not. It could be an excuse, but we'll see. It's kind of I'm with you. It's hey, I don't think so, but prove me wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just
we'll eat our words, right, Lou? We'll eat our words. If it pans out, it's gonna pan out, and it's for you. It's for your benefit. For me, maybe not, but I will eat my words. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, you think if Juventus was handed a transfer ban, right, and they couldn't buy anyone, but they got Pogba back, even 70% of Pogba, you got a new signing without making a new signing. So
exactly.
Aliani.
Yeah, but to your point about Di Maria, it's interesting. We had this question again with our interview with Romeo Agresti, which was on YouTube for viewers who didn't see it. And for you guys maybe who don't know, he's a big Juve journalist. He's probably the number one Juve associate journalist.
One of the better sources to read up upon if you're looking for Juventus news.
Yeah,
I've never seen a bad call made by him.
Mm-hmm. And he's incredibly nice guy too. Just it was really cool to connect with and everything. And I mentioned this interview because it just was interesting to hear his perspective. But we had proposed to him kind of, hey, would you renew Di Maria or not? I said yes, at a fixed cost, because I think he brings some leadership. The young players kind of looked to him as an example. Berto said no, and Romeo had said no based on the fact that he takes minutes away from young players. So like you were saying with the Band-Aid thing is, hey, if you have these young talents, if you were able to put Swole, who would play in his position, and they get to play against Napoli and Inter, but let's say he gets to play against Milan, gets to play in the Champions League and Europa League, then you can really see how much guts that kid has. What's the full potential here? Because I think Fagioli and Moretti, we've been able to see it because they've gotten a lot of minutes in bigger matches, and you could be okay, there's little glimpses here. And even Aimling Jr. in the Benfica game. So I think that's where it's these Band-Aid moves. Stick to a plan, identify your plan, and it's easier said than done because Nesta was on Robo TV. I watched the interview and I was just watching it for fun, and he talked about Juve. It was kind of interesting, to hear Gianni and your point about Juve. It was interesting to see a non-Juve person talk about it, and he was hey, Juventus' strength has always been defense, right? But when someone like Pirlo or Sarri comes in, they need time to put their tactics in. Juventus gets scared, because they don't know that they're not ready for it. Yeah, they got results, but they're afraid to commit beyond that because it wasn't enough, and they went away from what they thought made them good. So just whoever is next, commit to something, even if it blows up in your face. Just commit to something, right? Like, play the long game, commit to these young players, have some patience, take some time. Like, some of these players need patience, and it's hard. It's hard to ask that. I find myself having trouble with it. I go back and forth on certain people, but that'd be like the way forward. I think that we need patience and we need fresh ideas.
So
sorry, Jenny. I just wanted to interrupt before. I know you had a question, but I just wanted to say quickly. I really like your point about kind of taking the route of other teams going for transfers. One thing I noticed, obviously, that Juve has been doing the past few years, they always buy players from the Serie A, and there's a premium, right? When you buy from rivals, why not look elsewhere? Why not have scouts in Spain, have scouts in France, scouts in Germany? Look what Napoli did with Kvara. They found this guy in Georgia.
He was playing in Juventus, but still.
Sorry, I apologize, but nobody knew this guy besides the scouts.
Actually, Juventus was actually interested in him the year before. They were actually looking into it.
Yeah. Paratici met with his.
But they couldn't commit. They couldn't commit, right, Lou? They couldn't commit.
We hear this all the time. Like, Holland was supposed to go to Milan.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I read that today. I didn't know that before today.
We're still waiting.
We almost tweeted it out, but I got caught up at work and I read it and I was just like, "Oh my god!" Like, could you imagine?
We're still waiting for him. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I still want to come back. Like, I know he's Scudetto, but doesn't want to hop over. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, all I say is they need better scouting. Sorry, Johnny, you could ask a question.
I just want to touch upon the fact about youth, right? Like, they do need to find a project, commit to it, and stuff. And I feel like as if right now Juventus has a core that has been broken up, and ever since that core has been broken up, they've been having a hard time identifying what is going to be the new core. And one of the big purchases, or one of the big youthful purchases that they did, was Vlahovic. Like, obviously, Chiesa, in my opinion, is probably the best purchase they could have ever done. I still think that even though he's not having the greatest of seasons, he's still like the one of the key players. But Vlahovic, was the promising young scorer in Serie A, was I want to say phenom, but the way he was playing at Fiorentina was like, holy hell, this guy's going to be deadly in the future, and like, it was like as if it was written in the stars. He's like, no, I'd rather just go play at Juventus, and you guys happened to get a deal done. But this year, he's been suffering a lot. He's not the same Vlahovic as he started off with Juventus. Do you want to think maybe, like, is it because it's just Vlahovic himself is just not into it anymore? He's not clicking well with Allegri? Do you think maybe there's something else going on, Lou? Like what are your thoughts and feelings about Vlahovic?
So I break it down 3 ways. I think that Vlahovic, from a personal perspective, I think that whatever happened to him during the World Cup, I don't think, at least for a little bit, he recovered from it fully. He lost a lot of weight. His injury took a lot off of him, and I think physically he's reshaped a little bit, and he hasn't like adapted to that yet. And I think that, like, the further you go without the goal, the more confidence you lose. I think he needs just like a fresh summer break, and I think that that's something that doesn't get talked about. It's not an excuse, but I think it's a factor. His game as a whole, listen, like he's a great player. We saw it in flashes last year. We saw it at the beginning of this year. But there are some things, the little things he does, I don't know that he does particularly well, which is his hold-up play, maybe some of his passing. Now, I know Fiorentina is a little bit better, but Juventus is different, right? It's a different team. Allegri's a different style, and you can see kind of a little bit. He gets played a lot of long balls. That's not really his strength. So, I think that there's things that he can improve on, obviously. I think that when you're going through a drought, I think Inzaghi had famously said this, but it was like when you're going through a drought, you need to do the little things, your hold-up play, your work rate. You got to, provide assists for your teammates. That helps you get your confidence, and I don't think he thinks in that, realm yet. But he's 22, and he'll learn, hopefully, or he won't. But if he doesn't, I hope it's somewhere else, But as far as like the tactical part of it, which is the other 2 components in this, is that I think losing Dybala was bigger effect on him than maybe we all think, because I think that having that number 10 next to him, Dybala, like Di Maria plays in that role, but Di Maria comes deep, he goes wide, that leaves Vlahovic isolated a lot. And you watch a lot of these games and he's double marked by the center backs. You take him out of the game real fast because even if they're putting crosses into the box, like he's the only guy challenging it. Juventus midfielders don't get into the box. Us as Rabiot, like rarely. I think Moretti's pretty good at it, but Fagioli sometimes here and there. Locatelli's always too deep to, really make a run in. So he's left alone a lot. And I think that's a big problem. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have gotten rid of Dybala. That's another story. There's a lot there, but I just think that Morata, even as a second striker, played very well, complimented him really well. And I think that losing that, didn't help. And I also think Juventus, and this is the story of the last 3-4 years with Agnelli, is Juventus bought a striker to say, hey, we need to make a big-time move. We're making a big-time investment. Ronaldo's gone. We're still a big club. We get the biggest striker in Serie A at the time. No offense to Victor Osimhen, who, this year has been incredible. But at the time, Vlahovic was like the guy, right?
Yeah, he was the guy that everyone was like, okay, this guy's going to be the next top young striker, not just in Italy, but probably in the world with the way he was playing at Fiorentina. Like, you'd be silly to say that he wasn't the one that showed the most promise.
Yeah, and so I think that's like, Juventus, they made that purchase and they were like, all right, we got it. But it's like, they kind of were like, all right, this is our guy for the next 5 years. We moved Dybala here. Like, that's it. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. But like, what worked with Vlahovic? Like, who did he play well with? Yeah, he played well with the number 10. He played well with Morata, who was playing as a winger and a second striker sometimes. He's unselfish. The same thing happened with Ronaldo for years. It was like, hey, like, if you could get like a number 9 to play next to Ronaldo, he kind of looks a little bit better, right? But they never did that until Pirlo's year. And it's just like, it's the way they operate. It's just, so I think those three things play a component in to like why he's struggling. If you were to sell him this summer, if that's a follow-up question, that's a tough one, because A, I think his market value has dropped, so you're taking a loss. B, like I said, the heavy investment, to blow up a heavy investment after a year and a half, not a good look on your club. And the replacement options like Scamacca, if it's Scamacca, Keane, and Milik next year, like that's not getting you back in the top 4.
No.
So I'd rather give Vlahovic one more year where it's like, hey, you're starting from zero, let's see. And then if it blows up, it blows up in your face. Then like, sell him like we did De Ligt and make a loss and put ourselves into more trouble. But I'd be curious, like, what's your guys' thoughts on it? The outside looking in, like, what do you guys think about the Vlahovic thing?
Vlahovic.
We'll go with Nick first, and then I guess Adrian, then myself.
I think his mentality is pretty weak. For me, that game where I'm forgetting who it was against. I want to say Samp, but I could be wrong. Where he had a penalty, he missed the penalty, and then not long after, I'm drawing a blank. Was it Soulé who scored?
It was
Soulé scored.
Yeah,
Soulé scored. I think.
You're right.
It was Sam. Soulé scored, and if you watch the replay, Vlahovic looks disappointed that Soulé scored. Because if I'm not mistaken, either Vlahovic hit the post or he got a shot stop, and then Soulé put in the rebound. And Vlahovic looks disappointed. And I know he was going through a slump at that time. He's still going through a slump, pretty much since February. He doesn't look in it, and it's really frustrating because we paid a lot of money for this guy. He was good last year. You know he's good. He was good at the beginning of the season. And if like strikers, we talk about this all the time on the pod. Like strikers are streaky. They're gonna go in and out of streaks all the time. They're gonna be hot for a couple of weeks, and they're gonna be cold for a couple of weeks, and that's fine. That's normal. It's hard to score at the professional level, but if your mind's in the game, you're gonna score more than if your mind's not in the game. And right now, Vlahovic just in a state where his mind's not in the game. Yeah, sure, maybe the system's not the best. We're not the most attacking team, but considering Rabiot has more goals than him, there's something up. So, like you said, I don't think we could sell him. Maybe if he gets a hat trick on the last game of the season and some team wants to spend more than $70 million on him, yeah, go ahead. But yeah, I say wait it out, like you said, for a year. Maybe he has to see a sports psychologist or something. Maybe just give that summer of rest or something. I don't know. It's really frustrating to watch, honestly.
It is frustrating for whatever the reason is. It just is.
It's interesting, guys. I mean, listen, like you guys said, and I think it is obvious. I mean, the talent is there. I mean, we're not going to sit here and say there's nothing to work with. I think there is something to work with Vlahovic. Like I do agree with the whole mental thing, because especially as a striker, and I think he's just looking to score so much that it affects everything else about his game. He's like, in his head, he's like, I have to score, and every game it's like, I don't score. And for him, it screws up everything else that goes along with his game. Even if you think he has nothing left else to give, for me, he's so honed in on that mentally that it screws up everything else for him. For me, like I said, there is something to work with there. There is talent. Is he Haaland? No, I don't think so. But again, he's not one of us, right? He's not. Yeah. He's not. A Serie D player. No. So he's in. Like exactly right. Yeah, exactly. He's there, but he's not there yet. I mean, there's still things to work on. Again, was the whole move to Juve a bit premature? I don't know. I'm not here to say yes or no. I mean, it's a different environment. Again, jumping from those tiers, right? Like we said earlier. With Bremer, right? We said it earlier. You're going from a Torino to a Juve. You're going from a Fiorentina to a Juve. That step is a big step. I still think the waiting game needs to happen, but it's hard to wait when you pay so much, especially in Italy. We already have no patience in Italy, and we don't give enough time to young players. But for me, there is, like I said, there's something there. I think the pieces around him need to do better because, again, bringing back to my whole Band-Aid thing, you can't just say, fuck it, guys, we're going to spend all the money on Vlahovic. He's going to be our striker. He's going to score 20 goals in Serie A, but have absolutely nothing going on behind him or around him to help him in any way. Yeah. He's not Jesus Christ, right? This is not what it is. So it's unfortunate because he has dipped quite a bit. I mean, for the league's sake, I mean, having another young star dip, it's a bit of a bad situation to see. But I don't know. I think for me, again, it's for teams. I mean, games are won and lost in the midfield. I mean, for me, I've always said it. Juve's midfield is not where it needs to be. It's getting there. Hopefully, we'll see. I don't know. But the pieces around him also have to click. But he needs to want it, like Nick said as well, and he needs to be there mentally because you're playing for one of the top three teams in the country historically. You can't have this weak mentality. If that's the mentality you have, I mean, I don't think Juve is the team for you. I don't think Milan's the team for you. I don't think Inter is the team for you. If you can't handle that type of pressure and you can't be there mentally, for me, it's not going to work. But again, I agree with you, Lou. You have to give him more time. You can't put the eject button right away. It's not even that it's going to make it a bad look. It's going to be like we almost didn't even try to give him time. I mean, a year, it's something, yes, but it's nothing crazy. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm Mr. Knowledgeable about giving players time, but Leao, I mean, is the big example that everybody likes to bring up. Tonali too, but Leao, I'm going to stick with Leao just because he's emerged so much more, winning Serie A MVP, merited or not, we can discuss. That's fine, but you have to give these players time. It's not going to be every year. You're gonna catch a guy like Kvaratskhelia coming out of the woodworks and perform immensely. Those things might just not always happen. It's amazing to see. Kvaratskhelia has had an amazing year. He's a true bright spot for Napoli, for the league, for everything. But I mean, I don't know. It's a bit of a shame if you don't give a guy like Vlahovic a bit more time and try to recoup some of that mental game, some of that energy, some of that, I don't know, just hunger. Because at the beginning of the season, guys, I mean, I don't think he was there. I mean, he wasn't not there. For me, he was there. So what happened? Again, this season has been an overall crazy season. It's not an ordinary year. World Cup year, smack in the middle of the season. There's a lot of factors, guys. I mean, I'm not making these as excuses, but there are factors that play into Calcio. So for Vlahovic, for me personally, you have to give him the time. There's something to work with. Help him in the most way you can. And if those all things don't work at the end of it, then we could say, you know what, fuck Vlahovic. He's not him. You know. So
yeah,
that's how I see it.
I honestly think. Sorry, no, Lou. Sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
I was gonna say before because you could probably touch more on this. I think Victor Osimhen, one of the things he does really brilliantly is he gets a lot of garbage goals, which number 9s get a lot of like garbage goals, right? You know, goals are goals at the end of the day. That's
puts themselves in those positions to be successful.
Exactly. That's just how talented he is that he's putting himself in the positions, he's getting these goals. I mean, even I think one of the goals he scored against us came off of like kind of like a freakish rebound, right? Where it's like a wicked shot Osimhen scored. Maybe I'm getting that wrong. Maybe it was Carver that did. But just in general, like I see him score goals that kind of come out of nothing. That's where I think Vlahovic could be a little bit better. Like he's on the last defender, or you know, like the ball gets whipped into the cross and he's right there, right? That's where I think he could be a little bit better. And that's a little mentality, that's a little experience, but I just wanted to bring that up for the sake of that debate.
That's good.
Yeah. My point that I was going to bring up is the fact that, you know, I'm going to be a bit of a Vlahovic defender here. I think, you know, it's just circumstances of the team is why he's been underperforming. I don't think he's getting the support that he needs to make those plays. Like Osimhen, for example, last year wasn't activated as much until he got Kvaratskhelia this year. Kvaratskhelia really helped activate Osimhen, you know, and that makes a difference. Like, you know, like Chiesa, for example, you know, not getting utilized properly, you know, that might be a big factor because I think he could be the perfect winger for Vlahovic, you know. And then you look at Allegri's system, like what is it, like the expected goals Twitter's account always after like every game it's like under 1.0. Like how can you get any offensive output from a team that their expected goals, I know expected goals are expected goals, it's a number that is never going to tell you it tells you like the story of the game. It's not going to tell you exactly what it should be or what they merit as a result, but it shows you like, okay, well, the way that they played, they deserve like 1 goal or 2 or so on and so forth. And every time you see that number below 1, it's like, how do you expect any striker to flourish in a system like that or to score in a system like that? How do you expect anybody to find any goals or be successful? It's nice, you know, like when you see a game and you see everybody contributing, that's fine. You know, as a fan, that makes you happy because that means like, okay, if this person slacks, this person's able to pick up the pace, you know. But as a striker and you're playing in a very defensive system, and you're not going to be scoring that often. And if you're not scoring that often, that just ruins your confidence for even further. So I'll be a Vlahovic defender in this case. I think he's just a victim of circumstance, a victim of a system and of players around him that are not being used properly. I'm not saying the players, it's the other player's fault that he sucks. I'm saying that everyone in that situation isn't benefiting from what they are in right now. It's not the right players. It's a conflict. I think Allegri came back because, you know, he had former success with the team. It was the safe choice. Let's go with it. And it touches upon what you said before about the fact that stick with somebody, try out something new. Don't be afraid. Don't stay in your comfort zone, you know, explore those unknown regions. And I think that's what basically why Vlahovic himself is not the same as he used to be.
I think that's valid.
I think
that's fair.
So I think that'll do it for, today, guys. I don't know if you guys have any other questions though.
I actually had one more. One more. And just because that's not really touching not exactly the same topic, but kind of. I mean, I don't want to call Vlahovic a flop of the season. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know. But I just kind of wanted to see, just because the season is coming to a close. Unfortunately, we got 7 games left. A lot to be prayed for, a lot to be had. It's going to be a fight to the finish, just like it's been for the last couple of seasons now in Serie A. Just for Juve, Lou, just maybe your tops and flops player-wise that can kind of say at the end of the season these players were got us where we need to be, and the players that kind of underperformed in your personal opinion. Just before we wrap up here.
Yeah, so I think the flops, we highlight a couple of them. Obviously, whether it's his fault or not, Vlahovic had a very disappointing season.
Okay.
Pogba, too. You know, you can look at Pogba and say, that was not the best one. Those are pretty the 2 glaring ones. I wouldn't put Chiesa in there. Chiesa, you know, like we touched on the other day, that he's not fully fit. He doesn't have, until recently, he didn't have 90 minutes in his legs. They can't really utilize him, so I just think like he's just kind of floating around and like they're putting him in when they can, and it's not really a real season for Chiesa. So
he's waiting until next season. Chiesa. We'll see next season what happens with him. I think.
Yeah, I agree. I will say to the extent, maybe you could say that Bonucci's been a flop in the sense that he's done. Like I thought maybe we could get him for like a 5th or 4th center back, but he just can't stay fit. So in that regard, I'd put him in the flop conversation where it's just like, hey, thank you for your service, but he's just done. His legs are gone. The pros, the positives are, I think Rabiot could walk away and say that he had a good year. I hate saying that. I still don't like him. But he was top this season. To be fair, you guys have been sports, so I'll be a sport, and I'll say he had a good year. I might choke saying that. Cut that part out. You can just beat my whole segment there after Rabiot. So he had a good year. I think Kostic can walk away with his head held high. That's a piece that I think is better than what people can attribute to. Danilo obviously was a great discovery this year, and I think that he'll be a good part next year. Even if we don't get the same, I think he's just a good persona. He's become a leader. So I think he walks away with it, and I think, Fagioli walks away from the season as a guy who started on the outside. Like, remember, Fagioli was like our 7th center back. Like center mid. They wanted to sell him. Like that was before the rumor he was going to get sold. He stayed, and I think he's really carved a future for himself in that midfield. So I think those 3 players can all walk away and say, hey, or those 4 players can all walk away and say, hey, next year, I had a really good year this year. They were kind of the pros.
Well said.
I agree. Everything you said, especially Chiesa, not a good season if you want to look at it with a microscope. But I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. He looks like he's struggling a bit, but it's tough. It's tough coming back from injury. We'll make our judgments next year. But I'm not gonna lie though, I am a bit worried. I'm a bit worried because he doesn't look like his old self. Before the injury, he was so explosive, making cuts, making runs. He was so quick with the ball. When he put his head down and just ran, that's it. It was over. We haven't seen that yet, but we'll see. Because these injuries, they're career changing. They're so hard on the body. Obviously, we had Anthony on. He spoke about it, how tough it is. But so we'll see. We'll see next year. Like I said, benefit of the doubt. But that's pretty much it, Lou. Thank you so much. This was a great conversation. Great to listen to you. Get another fan's perspective. Get your full opinions instead of just tweets that are limited in characters that I normally see on Twitter. Obviously, not the good day for Juve fans, but hopefully we'll celebrate in 2 weeks with the Europa League. Or at least 3 weeks after the semifinal. But I think that'll do it for us.